Welcome back, Mr. Ivie Richards, who is the Executive Director of Anti-Corruption Observatory, joins us next to give us his perspective about what we might have seen in the headlines about the Ibrahim Magu's release, the suspension, reported suspension of 12 directors, and how all of this is just turning out. Good morning. Thank you for joining us today. Well, I haven't seen those headlines.
Good morning, Chamberlain.
I know you had given your perspective earlier on perception and reality of how all of this, from what you're reading and hearing about what's going on. But at the moment now, how easy or difficult is it for people to begin to separate perception from reality in the context of the latest headlines about the situation with Ibrahim Magu?
Well, the investigation is still in progress. One thing is always even better not to start an investigation like this, because once you commence an investigation of this nature, one thing leads to another, and before you know it, the scope gets really, really widened, and the things you didn't even expect begins to show up, which is exactly what is going on at the moment. But at the end of the day, the panel would complete their work and give recommendation to the government. So at the end of the day, it's only in the wisdom of the government, depending on what has been discovered, that a decision will be taken for Magu to either be retained or be removed from his desk.
Clarity of processes in terms of how this is turning out?
Come again, please.
Do you have clarity in terms of processes, expected or established processes regarding how this is playing out?
This investigation really is being carried out behind closed doors. Journalists are not allowed into the place, and everything that we're hearing, I don't want to say a rumor, but most of it are coming afterwards. But the investigation is in the interest of the country, is in the interest of the anti-corruption agency. I have no doubt in my mind that the panel will do the needful, and I think they are trying to be very, very thorough. I really wasn't looking forward to holding Mr. Magu back for 10 days, but because of the fact that they want to do a thorough job, that has happened. And you can now even see that even the top officers who were not really expecting that they will be also called have also been suspended. All this, I think, is to make clarity for evidences to be thrown up without hindrance. And we're hopeful. We're hopeful that at the time they complete their work, Nigeria will be a better place for it.
When you said that the whole process is happening behind closed doors and journalists are not allowed, consequently, can't get the fine details of what is happening with the panel and with the investigation. Is this something that makes you uncomfortable, or you think it's something that is okay?
I am not that much uncomfortable, because remember that this is not an open court, it's not a law court, and whatever they are doing to be able to properly guide the government of the day in taking the decision that they will take eventually. So at this time, it's not. I'm not really worried that the thing is being held behind closed doors and journalists are not allowed in at the moment. At the appropriate time, I'm sure that all details will be thrown to the public because it is meant for public consumption, and we know everything that is going on. But the important thing is that government has to be able to take a decision that is free and fair to all and for the common good.
Upon his release, you would also hear, Mr. Magu has said that, look, all of the allegations against him were trumped up and they really don't mean anything. As a matter of fact, he said it's a case of dog eat dog. What do you make of that?
Honestly, there are some things that are coming up now that will make one a bit uncomfortable. For instance, the issue of bulletproof cars, that is not official. Interest on money that have been seized. I just think that he should be able to explain properly. But don't forget that desk, as I said earlier, that desk needs an impeccable, it's anything that anybody can use to hold you down and to use to blackmail you while on that desk must all be avoided. And as a matter of fact, even before the appointment, he ought to have gone through some sting operations before the appointment. That didn't happen. Whether they are trumped up or not, it's very instructive that detailed investigations are carried out and conclusions that is free and fair to all is reached. Don't forget that, first and foremost, the DSS, some years ago, raised objections to his appointment, based upon which the then National Assembly refused to confirm his nomination. And then we are looking again at his principal, the Minister of Justice, raising similar, concerns. So for me, it is very, very instructive that a proper and thorough investigation is carried out, and that even if it's cleared, I think that the honorable thing to do, and for the name of that agency, that someone else will have to properly take charge. That's what I feel, and that's a personal opinion.
But then, just as you said, that the desk of the EFCC chairman needs to be one of to be occupied by someone of impeccable character. He is the fourth in the line, and it would seem like everyone who has been in that office has had to live in uncomfortable, controversial, displeasing, tasteless circumstances. Is there a problem with the recruitment, with the persons, or the process of putting someone in the office of the chairman of the EFCC?
It's not the recruitment. It is not the process. It is more or less about the person and the system, basically about the system. I remember very clearly that Lamode was accused of similar offenses about seized money and infractions and all of that. Waziri was not too far from the same thing. That tells us one thing, that the system is not strong. If you have a system where monies and properties are to be seized, and you have the headship of the leadership being accused from time to time, you do corruption risk assessment. What is the probability of a thing like this occurring when so much money is being seized? If it occurs, what are the potential damages to the agency, to the country, even to the person at that desk? You map all of that out. What are the things that you are supposed to put in place to remediate those things if they ever occur? And how do you prevent them? So you do risk management, which is what anti-corruption is all about. What I said before, that what we're doing right now is reactive, and that's nothing that concerns anti-corruption. Anti-corruption is a proactive activity. So years before now, you will have looked at that desk, you will have been able to imagine what damages could occur, and before this time, you will have plugged all the identified loopholes. So even if you seize ₦1 trillion and you put in the coffers of the EFCC, nobody is able to pilfer a penny, from it, except it's through a very pure and official channel. Right now, we don't have that in place. We don't have a strong institution in place. And it's not just only the EFCC. The EFCC has come up now because that's the matter that is at the front burner at the moment. Okay. All the agencies are weak, so and they need to be strengthened.
Whatever the facts may be, perhaps vis-a-vis, with compared to the risk assessments which you just highlighted, what do you expect moving forward? Do you expect him to return to office at the moment?
At the end of the day, the bulk will stop at the desk of the president of the country, and that will also depend on the kind of advice that the panel will give. But looking at the fact that he's been accused by two national agencies, and especially that of the intelligence agency, and the world is watching, I think that it will not be very proper anymore for Mr. Magu to return to that desk.
If it turns out that those allegations are just what they are, are just what it said, allegations, should it then be that, yeah, allegations or not, still stand down since you've been accused?
If I were Magu, if I were in his shoes, after all the huddle and all the, the travail and everything, and it's discovered that it was just mere campaign to spare my personality, and if my intention of being there is just to serve the country, I will honorably resign. Except I have ulterior motives of sitting at that desk, that's when I will stay on. But being put through all of this rigor and seeing that my conscience is clean and clear and all I want for the agency is nothing but the common good, why should I stay on? I would resign. That's the way I see it. And all of that for the sake of the agency and for the integrity of the country.
So, how strong or weak do you think the anti-corruption fight would be as a result of this investigation of the lead agency of against corruption in Nigeria? How strongly do you think the fight will be, or how weakened do you think the fight has become?
This can be viewed from two angles. Some will argue that for the chairman of the EFCC to be accused of these weighty allegations, that kind of impunity would not really occur except he is privy to higher authorities or similar authorities that are also involved in similar activities. Some will argue from that light. Others will say that, well, because the EFCC chairman is being investigated and that, in quotes, sacred cow agency is thrown up for people to scrutinize, it therefore means that there is no one that is above the law in the country that cannot be challenged or investigated. These two ends will be valid, but at the end of the day, personally, I think that is a major blow to the anti-corruption campaign because for me, it ought not have even occurred at all in the first place. It should have been nipped long before it's
But Mr. Richards, does it bother you that having been held for this long, okay, however long, because now we read that the IGP said, look, he's not, all those detention stories you might have been reading may not have been accurate. So did it bother you that you didn't see a lot of lawyers who were, shouting on top of their voices, writing and then saying, look, no, he needs to be released, and making as much impact and noise and commentary as perhaps if human rights were in question here?
At the end of the day, really, there are two courts, as it were, that is at play. The court of public opinion, and then the panel that is doing its work, after which, if need be, a proper court would be, handle the issue. So lawyers can say what they would like to say. Public consultants and analysts can say what they would have to say. And don't forget that lawyers, most of them are there to make money. They look for jobs here and there and all of that to make money. So everyone can say what they have to say. At the end of the day, the whole thing will depend on the findings of the panel and how they will appropriately guide the government and how government will be wise enough to take the appropriate action that should be taken. If it's found to if the panel indicts him in the slightest of all the allegations, I think the proper thing for the government to do would be to hand over the case to a proper court of law, where Magu will be entitled to his lawyers to appear to defend him, and the thing will go through due process, and eventually, if he's found guilty, the law will take its course, and if he's not guilty, if pronounced exonerated, he will have to go free. That's the way it is all over the world, and I think that's the way it should be in our country.
Okay, because there are those who were asking questions about the propriety of this Tribunal of Inquiry Act. How strong can it be? Can they have? But I guess we'll find out from lawyers in a moment about this one. But in terms of ensuring that the right perception is put out there, no such mindset as to whether or not we have derailed as a result of what may be going on, with a focus and challenge and fight to tackle corruption. Do you think that we should, perhaps moving forward, review the laws such that we don't limit the positions or the people who occupy that office to, as we've seen over the years, police officers?
Well, the leadership, the headship of the EFCC really should not just be left to a particular force, say the Nigerian police or the Nigerian military, as it could be. As I said earlier, anti-corruption is nothing much more than corruption risk assessment, and you have experts in that field abound, in the country. So the law could be reviewed, that's one, but most importantly, it is very, very important to strengthen the institution. Look at all the loopholes that are there in the EFCC. Develop tests and plug them so that when another person comes, I remember very clearly some time ago when the former Emir of Kano was interviewed concerning some infractions at the NNPC. He said clearly that even if you put an angel at the leadership of the NNPC, that angel will be corrupt. And that simply is saying that, look, the system is not strong, the system is weak. So the first thing and the first approach is to strengthen the system. And that's what anti-corruption is all about. Anti-corruption is not, as I said when you first invited me to this program, if you have to begin to wait and begin to arrest people who have stolen money and all of that, you may have to arrest over 3/4 of Nigerians, because this thing is in the value system of the people. So how do you mitigate against this? First and foremost, you put systems in place to begin to reorientate the value system of the people, and then you strengthen the systems so that people will not be seen making free money as the order of the day. As Abuja stands today, Abuja is like the big cake. Everybody comes there with the intention of cutting how much they can cut and take back to the sites. And look, Chamberlain, the truth of the matter is that a lot has to be done concerning anti-corruption in Nigeria, because this country really, the sides are supposed to be stronger than the center. That's what, and that in itself is corruption. If the center is stronger than the side, people coming from the sides will feel that there's something unjust going on. And intentions about strengthening Nigeria will make, that's why you don't have pure Nigerians. There are very few pure Nigerians. You have the Christian,
what does that mean?
The Muslim. There are very few pure Nigerians. Pure Nigerians mean paying allegiance to Nigeria, defending our unity, upholding the glory and all of that. It's not just a rhetoric. It's there in the heart. And nothing will ever stop you you will not sway to the left or to the right, about that conviction in your heart. But when you go there as a senator, as a House of Rep member, as a minister, and you see that what is happening is like the struggle and partition of Africa. Everybody wants to cut and take to Igbo, cut and take to Hausa, cut and take to Yoruba and all of that. There's a lot of confusion. So the first things to be done is to properly run the country like the confederation that it is. Make the sides very strong, weaken the center in most ramifications. Look at the fight going on between the junior minister of labor and the National Assembly. Why should that even occur at all in the first place? Those things should be under the purview of state governments, local government authorities, and not from the center trying to give job to somebody in a remote local government somewhere. So the entire thing is in complete disarray. And until you begin to, what do they call it now? There's a term used for realign all of these systems. You actually are not, some say it's restructuring. And restructuring is very key, but restructuring align with this kind of thing that I'm talking about. Decentralize the powers, give more powers to the sides. As a child growing up in Nigeria, those days I was in primary school, if I had any cut on my fingers, I just turn around and not less than a kilometer away, there's a dispensary. I go there, they give me like APC, put plaster on my hands, and my parents will not even know about it until I get home. That is the same Nigeria, and that was what was happening. What is stopping that from happening right now? So most of the systems need to be reviewed, and you need to decentralize power from the center and make the sides stronger. That way also, institutions that are inherent in this in the country, in the side and in the center,
all right, Mr. Richards,
will also be made stronger.
We have to go. We do thank you for your perspectives this morning. Mr. Ivie Richards is the Executive Director, Corruption Observatory. Thank you for talking to us this morning.
Thank you so much.